Welcome, everybody. My name is Dr. Grace Telesco, and we are live streaming from the Fischler College of Education School of Criminal Justice at Nova Southeastern University. I am a full-time faculty member in the School of Criminal Justice, and I'm joined by my friends and colleagues, these amazing guests that we have tonight to talk about Second Chances Through Education, which is an amazing program that was pioneered by these two amazing, bright women, these scholars, these researchers, these criminal justice practitioners and psychology practitioners. I'm going to talk a little bit about what their program is about. Then they'll launch into it. They'll talk about it. But the bottom line is that what we're going to be talking about tonight is reentry success. And so when offenders find themselves in the system, and there's a big leap here when we say the word offenders, we're making an assumption that they were guilty and proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, and that our system works. And we know that sometimes that our system doesn't work, and that it's multi-layered with racist issues, internalized racism, individualized racism, institutionalized racism, classism, etc. So there's all of these different variables, explanatory variables that might help us understand why folks who find themselves within the system, guilty or otherwise, that when they are finally released from, let's say, incarceration, what is the stigma that's still with them? As we know, anytime you go to a job and you fill out an application, one of the things that they're going to ask is, have you ever been convicted? Have you ever been arrested? And these are the issues that a lot of offenders face: is how do we start over? How do we get a second chance? And everyone deserves a second chance, because there but for the grace of God go I always believe that at any given time, one wrong decision, one wrong move, a perfect storm, and I find myself institutionalized with no one believing me, and also judging me for a name, a label, offender. And so these two women, these two colleagues of mine that I'm just so grateful, they're so busy. They work at Miami-Dade College. They're full-time faculty there. And so without any further ado, I'm going to actually just kind of tell you a little bit about the Institute for Educational Empowerment out of Miami-Dade College. So the Institute brings the mission and vision of Miami-Dade College to an underserved population. And that underserved population are those who reside in correctional institutions in South Florida. And right on their website, if you are interested in more information about the Educational Empowerment Institute, you can just Google that, actually, the Institute for Educational Empowerment, and you will see their really great website. And you'll also get Professor Samantha Carlo and Dr. Minka Davis Brantley's information is listed there as well. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Minka Davis Brantley. She's a professor of psychology. She's worked for the college for it's probably more than 13 years now, I would imagine. Am I right?
15, I think we're at,
right? 15.
16, sweet 16.
Sweet 16, awesome. She was trained in medical health psychology, practiced primarily in level 1 trauma centers in South Florida before coming to the college, Miami-Dade College. Dr. Davis Brantley applies her practical experience to the classroom, fostering a richer learning experience for her students. And she was awarded in 2014 the Endowed Teaching Chair at Miami-Dade College. My other great friend, Professor Samantha Carlo, who just celebrated a birthday, happy birthday, is an associate professor, senior in the School of Criminal Justice. She has over 20 years experience working in various roles within criminal justice. Her expertise and research are working with correctional populations, prison reform, and expansion of post-secondary educational opportunities for those who are incarcerated. How many years are you there, Professor Carlo?
The same. Dr. Brantley and I met the first day of faculty orientation in August of 2006. And it was just
Kismet.
It was.
Kismet, right? I mean, it took us a couple of years to get our program started, and we're in sister disciplines, psychology and criminology,
Yes.
and just very shared a lot of values and goals and like-minded in a lot of ways. So it was a match made in heaven.
Awesome. Soul sisters. Soul sisters. For sure, for sure. And in
Sister from a
2014,
different Mr. Dr.
Yeah.
Telesco. Sister
yes,
from a
that's
different
right.
Mr.
That's right. I know. All of us are.
Yeah.
We all worked together when I was at Miami-Dade College for a short time there. And I think the very first time I ever met Dr. Minka Davis Brantley was we were doing what we call guerrilla theater, a sociodrama technique for Black History Month. And I believe we were doing Jim Crow era issues of segregation, and we were kind of playing around with that, and it was so exciting. That was an exciting, really cool time. But back to Professor Carlo. In 2014, Professor Carlo was awarded also the endowed teaching chair. So let me tell you something: you don't get to be full-time faculty and full professor and associate professor and endowed teaching chair. That just doesn't come just like overnight for no reason. That comes because of hard work, brilliance, tenacity, and passion for what they do. So without any further ado, I'm going to go off screen for a minute, and I'm going to allow for our guests to share with you what is this program, Second Chances Through Education? What is it? How did it start? How did you get the idea? How does it address the problem that we mentioned earlier?
Sure.
Take it away.
I'll go ahead and start, and then Minka, you can always clean me up like you do so well. So Miami-Dade College's Institute for Educational Empowerment actually started as a non-credit, more psychoeducational programming that we brought into correctional institutions in South Florida. At one point, we were in 5 different institutions each semester, and pretty much from the first session that we had with our students, we realized that there was so much talent, so much brilliance, and so much hunger for knowledge with our students who were incarcerated. And so it actually started like in 2014, where Dr. Brantley and I approached our administration and said, we need to bring credit-bearing classes into correctional institutions. And so this set us down a path of research, of mountains, of roadblocks, of boulders, where we learned that most post-secondary educational programs throughout the country closed in the mid-1990s as a result of federal legislation that was signed during the Clinton administration, when there was this really this hardcore approach to crime and justice. We call it the Get Tough on Crime movement. It's also when the war on drugs was launched. And so anyone who appeared soft in crime or soft on crime as a lawmaker was not getting elected. And so this kind of just set this spiral of ending most rehabilitation programs, closing post-secondary educational programs, because this 1994 legislation also put a ban on financial aid for individuals who are incarcerated. So we've had that huge obstacle because you need funding to cover the cost of tuition. And so just as we were really getting our feet wet with the research and trying to figure out how are we going to fund these classes, under President Obama and his Department of Education, they launched something called the Second Chance Pell Experimental Site Program, which meant that if colleges were interested in offering credit-bearing courses to those who are incarcerated, they could apply to the Department of Education to be selected, and the Department of Education would then provide the Pell Grants directly to the college, not to the individual student. And so we applied in 2015. We were not selected in the first cohort. I'm still licking my wounds from that one. But like Dr. Telesco said, if anything, we're tenacious and we're persistent. And so surprisingly, under Trump's administration, they expanded it and they put a solicitation out for new applicants. We applied again and we were selected in March or April of 2020. We learned we were selected April of 2020, right during the pandemic. We were home. And they said, congratulations, go launch a prison education program, but there's COVID. So it was, prisons were closed to us. So we really had to be innovative and put a team together. The college put a 20-member committee together to help us to deal with things related to admissions and residency and financial aid and acquiring transcripts. And so we kind of lead this little army at the college who's just on this forward marching mission to get educational opportunities to students who are incarcerated. So right now we're at one facility. Go ahead.
I have to just take a moment with that, because I have to say that in undertaking this large, I'm a psychologist, I'm a medical psychologist, so I get my criminology education from Samantha. So I'm lucky to get her as a professor too. But learning about that cultural shift that took place in our society, where we are now saying, let's get tough on crime. And I think there was this huge transition for how we even saw those who were in the justice system, those who were justice impacted, and kind of learning that cultural shift led us to where we are today, where we have these long sentences and zero programming and zero true rehabilitation, right? So if the purpose is to remove that person from society and help them to improve so that when they re-enter, they are better people, the evidence of that process was lacking. And so this is a huge undertaking that we took on, but I interrupted Samantha to say that the college has been behind us so strongly. I want people to understand, for a college to say, here are 20 people and they're not student assistants. We're talking directors of their departments that are on call with us on Sunday evening saying, hey, we have one more resident or something like that. I just want to make sure that those out there who are listening know that we are very grateful to our institution. We're grateful to the team that marches behind us to do a lot of the work that, frankly, Samantha and I could not do it without them. And I also have to highlight that when we are there and our team is inside prison with us, it makes them even more committed to the process, because I think what us outsiders sometimes forget is that these are human beings, as we can tell from some of our attendees. These are sons, fathers, brothers, uncles, cousins. Sorry, Siri's trying to talk to me. And so it's important to reconnect and kind of reverse some of that cultural shift that took place during that time. So I wanted to sidetrack you there, Sam, on that one. But I don't know where you were going after that, but I can keep on going if you want.
No, you go ahead.
No, so now, even though we have this service-oriented initiative that started for us a while ago, and we were in 5 different institutions, the kind of work this takes, we're in one institution right now, and that's Everglades Correctional Institution, and it's an incentivized prison. So that, I guess there's a little bit more opening for us to do some of the things that we want to do. We started our program. We didn't let COVID slow us down, and we decided we were going to start our program. And even if it was a non-traditional way of starting it, we started it. Our students are entering into the second last of their semester. The first cohort should be on target to graduate in July with their pre-Bachelor of Arts Associate in Arts degree. And we are very proud, we tout this as much as we can, that they collectively hold a GPA of 3.6. I think that GPA is 7. A little bit higher from I think it's 7 now, which, for those of you who don't know, a 3.5 gets you on the dean's list. So it's been one of those things that is it's rewarding to do what is right, but it's also rewarding to see our students excel so much under these conditions. We are lucky right now. We have 7 faculty who will be joining us, but I think we have a total of 11 faculty right now that are joining us. And we hear overwhelmingly that those faculty this is one of their favorite courses to teach, if not the favorite. I had a faculty that I spoke to today who was saying, I miss those guys. He had them last semester and he's like, I miss the conversation. How are they doing? So our faculty continues, it becomes a family, kind of the work that we're doing. And I know it all sounds like butterflies and roses in prison, but it has become that to some degree, because we get to see the successes of that we get to see every day. They work really hard and they're very much committed.
Yeah, so just to add to that, so we are running one cohort with 20 students, and they start their spring semester this coming Monday, and we're adding in a second cohort of 20 new students. So we'll have a total of 40.
Yep.
And so we're really excited for that. It's
And
been
let's
an
say the
uphill
classes,
battle. Oh,
Dr. Telesco, if you don't mind, I just love to tell the world, my students are taking chemistry right now.
yeah.
They're in speech, they're doing the humanities. I'm just very proud to even enlist those classes because
And a
these are
Spanish.
classes,
Yeah.
and Spanish. That's right. They just finished. They're finishing math classes. They're finishing college level math classes. And these are some classes that scare some students away, but our students rise to the occasion and aren't fearful at all.
Absolutely. I would love, before we went live, we were chatting a little bit and we were talking about stigma. We were talking about the difficulty of reentry success. Not even focusing on like, how does one find themselves institutionalized? That's another topic for another day. But once you're here and you're in this system, to get out of this system, it's almost, I don't want to say close to impossible, but let's look at what the research shows us. Recidivism, as we know, and again, how do we operationalize recidivism, I know, is a whole nother discussion. But let's just say folks who have been followed 5 years following their release from prison, what's the likelihood of reoffending in some way, shape, or form, whether it be a parole violation or a condition of parole or some other offense? We know that it's something to the tune of like close to 70%. And of course, the longer you go in terms of following the ex-offender, the more those numbers get skewed and whatnot. And again, to tease out what's the reason for the reoffending is a whole nother story. But the bottom line is that we're doing something, we're not doing something correct in terms of correcting, right? Corrections is supposed to correct behavior. However, there's no rehabilitation necessarily. And so your program really speaks to that. Your program is about empowerment. It's about validating. It's about strengths perspective. In psychology and in social work, we talk about zeroing in on the strength of the individual, right? So can you speak to any of the evidence that's looks at your program or programs like it, and how that might reduce the likelihood of reoffending and increase the chances of reentry success?
Right. So this, as I mentioned before, Obama launched this Second Chance Pell experimental site program. And so the intention was to use these years of offering this in an experimental way to then do the follow-up to see, is it something that's worth funding and continuing to fund? And I think the fact that they have offered the second round of applications and the third round of applications that are just being processed now has led to kind of this paradigm shift now, as of the end of last year, Congress has completely lifted the ban on Pell Grants for anybody, right? So you no longer just have to be a college who has applied to be a part of these experimental site programs. Starting July of 2023, really anyone in prison could be eligible for a Pell Grant, assuming that they meet the minimum requirements and assuming that there is a college or university who is willing to go in and offer the curriculum. So I think just the fact that it has moved from an experimental site kind of status to a bringing back of Pell Grants and financial aid for those who are incarcerated says a lot. Also, we don't have a lot of data because this program is relatively new. So it's from 2015. So a lot of the students who are taking courses in the program are still incarcerated. There haven't been that many released with college degrees. But there is one program out of New York that's called Hudson Link. And even despite the ban on financial aid, they've been able to develop and grow a wonderful program, and they operate out of like 6 or 7 prisons in the New York State area, and partner with a dozen or so colleges and universities. And even with most college programs in prison closing in 1994 and after that, they were able to keep their program open. And they track their students who have been released from prison. They have a less than 1% recidivism rate for students who participated in their program. And so they're the model that we replicate. And we hope that, our students follow that same trajectory. With education, we think people become empowered, and we're talking about people who've been in prison 10, 20, some 30 years. And this is the first time they're feeling their self-worth, and they're feeling that they're actually worthy of an education and worthy of learning and being able to have an opportunity to be successful once they get out. You talked about stigma, Dr. Telesco.
Well, before you do that, Sam, I just wanted to add that even though it seems it is a great win that removing the ban on Pell is coming, there are still so many obstacles and challenges to access to education inside prison. So as Professor Carla said earlier, one, you'd have to have a college partner that's willing to work with you. Number two, we wake up in cold sweats at the R word, which is residency. We have all of these challenges that require an entire team of people to help us work through in order to give access to our students. So although we are seeing shifts and changes, there still are limits to the access to our students inside what they may have access to. And so I don't want us to forget and think that, oh, things are great now, because there are still some
challenges. The national lift, the removal of the ban is wonderful for funding purposes, but specifically our program and any program in the state of Florida that's attached to a state college or university, we have Florida laws and policies that make things very, very challenging. I see some of the panelists are some of the family members for some of our students, so they can attest to what Dr. Brentley and I have had to go through just to get the documentation. Just so everyone knows, in the state of Florida, if you're incarcerated, you're automatically excluded as a resident of the state of Florida. So you're property of the state of Florida because you're incarcerated, but for tuition purposes, they don't qualify you as an in-state resident. So what we have to do is go back 1 year prior to their incarceration date. So we have students who've been incarcerated since the 90s or even the 80s. If you were incarcerated in 1982, we have to go back to 1981 and find documentation that proved you were a resident of the state of Florida. And it's this huge burden. It prevents several of our applicants from being accepted into the program. And that's a state law and a state policy issue that we're also fighting, because no other state that we've interacted with has the same policy. If you're in prison in West Virginia, you're a resident for tuition purposes. Tennessee, well, forget it. They have free college. So even people in and get free college in Tennessee. So Florida's really, lived here my whole life, never lived elsewhere. But it's a shame, some of the policies that Florida has.
You can be released tomorrow and get your resident discount at Disney World, but you cannot get residency at college.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
it's a
there's
problem.
so many mind-boggling things that we could comment on that we probably don't want to at this point, but maybe another time when we're retired and we have our own show, we could talk about some of the really strange things that you see. But here's what I wanted to know. You talked earlier about some there's qualitative and there's quantitative analysis and data that shows that there is success in this program, and that not only is there success in, I'm sure, the objectives that you set it up for, but also there's some other, maybe like a byproduct of being involved in the program, participating in the program, graduating in the program, in terms of empowerment, in terms of self-acceptance, in terms of motivation, and in terms of, being the architect of your own destiny, which is what we're asking for in this program, right? Is to be able to give you the tools that you need, particularly education, which is so empowering, and that knowledge base, but then also about self-empowerment and sense of self and sense of belonging and sense of validation of person, because that dignity of personhood has been removed as by the very nature of being institutionalized. So do you want to speak to the qualitative and the quantitative aspects at all?
I will start with this if you want, Sam. I want to share a little anecdote. We have a student at the college currently. He was in one iteration of our program, which was a SUBA years ago. He's been released, and he made a promise to his mother on his on her deathbed that he would return to college. And so he is fulfilling that promise right now. And he has gone through the justice system. He has been released. He was able to acquire employment, working with grooming dogs, which was very rewarding work for him. And now he's in hospitality. But Professor Carlo and I have had to hold his hand along the way, continuing to remind him that he is a valuable contributor to our society. He has to be reminded that constantly, because every place he goes, he has to retell his story of where he's coming from and why he has a gap of 18 years on his or whatever it is on his academic transcripts. He expressed wanting to talk to someone about what he's gone through and what led him to going to prison, and he wanted to seek counseling, and scared to have to do that because he has to recount what has happened to him, and he's terrified of the stigma that is attached to the identity that has now become a part of him. When you are in a space for 15 years and you are a number and you are referred to as inmate, it's a dehumanizing experience. But when we dehumanize, there's something that's going to go and fill that void, which is this new identity of inmate or whatever that is. So when you leave, he's now, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Professor Carl, I think he's about 2 years out at this point, or getting close, right? And this is a conversation we had with him last week that he still is dealing with, as something as simple as buying a book. So I say that to say that when we are correcting, we're stripping a person of their humanity, but we're not placing anything healthful or nurturing back so that they're more prepared to take on the challenges that they have to take on when they are released. When we talk about marginalized populations, this is obviously a marginalized population. There's occupational marginalization. How does he get work, right? So these are things that we continue to have to work on. And our telling him he's valuable and he's hardworking and good job over and over again is not enough, because he's also sent a message every single day, no matter where he goes, about his past. And so sometimes it's very difficult to strip yourself of that identity because you are reminded of that on and on. So a lot of what Professor Carlo and I also do is, as we're building the curriculum and bringing faculty in to work with us, we want to make sure they're aware of these things. It's not enough to say, oh, I'm going to save the people and help and teach in prison, but it's, are you really here to help undo some of the damage that's been done and to help move forward and redeveloping this human being?
Yeah, and Dr. Telesco, if I can share, anywhere between 600,000 and 700,000 people are released from prison every year. In Florida, that's around 35, 40,000. And so these are large groups of people. Probably 1% have access to post-secondary educational opportunities. Some others might have access to GED or some other, rehabilitative or educational programming, but the majority do not. And 95% of people in prison get out. And so to think that you go to prison and come out better is a fallacy. I mean, if you don't have the right interventions, the environment, the way it's structured is not an environment for personal growth. And this is why you have these recidivism rates, because they're essentially warehouses. I can say we have seen improvement in some numbers. Prison populations have gone up and up and up until about 2010. And then we started to see a slight decrease, and that was I think the result of some federal legislation, which then got states thinking, financially, these prison systems are not sustainable. I challenge my students to say, if 40 to 70% of people who leave prison go back within 3 years, is this a system that we should continue to throw money at? I mean, we spend about $80 billion a year in this country on incarcerating people. It's a lot of money. Some states spend more on prison populations than they do on higher education. It's just, I think, something we shouldn't continue to just write these blank checks. But in the same vein, correction staff and personnel will argue that they're underfunded, right? And so it's like, do you keep throwing money at a broken car just because you need a car to get from point A to point B? Or like, at what point do you give up on the broken car and just figure out a new strategy? Like,
Well,
take Uber or something.
if I may, I mean, maybe this idea, this opinion is out there, far-fetched, but isn't it in the best interest of the system itself to continue to have return customers?
I'm quiet. This is being recorded, Professor Carlo.
What happened? Is that true? Am I out of my mind in thinking?
Listen, I mean,
you're right.
I'm not scared.
Go ahead. No, we always make the joke that if I had a 30% pass rate in my class, Miami-Dade College would not continue writing me a check, right? So if this system has a 30% pass rate, but we as taxpayers are continuing to pay into it. But I think this also speaks to when Samantha and I spent a lot of time trying to reach out to legislators and try to change some of these challenges. And we get a lot of, wow, this is really important. And that's all we get after. They put a hard period at the end of that sentence, because when it comes time for change, I guess it's just not fun enough. I don't know. So,
I remember standing up, there was a senator, a Florida senator, and I was at a conference and I stood up and we were talking about bringing a program into a jail, not the prison, but into a jail. And also then trying to make some inroads into bringing this particular program, a substance abuse program, into the prisons in Florida. It was very hard to get into any of the prison wherever these prisons were located, whether it was in Ocala or higher up. And, he stood there and the senator, and said to me, yes, just gave me his card in front of all these people. I took the card. I called the very next Monday and, no answer, of course,
right.
And no return phone call. But it's all, it's sexy and it sounds charming to say how much you care about the system, that it's broken, and then you want to do something to fix it. But I I challenge you and I ask you, not you specifically, but I challenge these legislators. Um, isn't it in the best interest of someone to continue to have repeat customers keep coming back time and time again? I mean, let's think about it. If it was flipped and it was 70% success rate with a 30% recidivism, there'd be a lot of people who would not be profiting off of that.
Well, when you Florida, so yes and yes, but Florida does utilize prison privatization. At one point, there was this push to privatize the entire prison system. Fortunately, the corrections officers union was successful. I think when you have privatization attached to incarceration, I personally think it's unethical. That's my opinion. Other, capitalists, business-minded people would think, well, private industry does things better than government, and they might have some valid points. But as long as you have a board of people making money off the backs of people who are incarcerated, I think there is a financial incentive to keep their prisons full. As far as the state systems or the federally funded, not federally funded, but the federal prisons within the Federal Bureau of Prisons. It's an entire industry. I think we have like 600,000 correctional officers in this country, and we can't deny the fact that people are employed and are making money off of this system of incarceration. So if all prisons were to close, then yeah, there would be, some financial hardships for a lot of people in this country. I don't know. I don't know the solution. I think we over incarcerate. I think that we can cut our prison population in half, if not more. We're 5% of the world's population and 20% of the world's prison population. And I just think the 1980s were the beginning of this huge reliance on prison when society was very, not apprehensive, but just unwilling to really look at the root causes of crime causation and invest in fighting and tackling those issues like poverty and substance abuse and mental health issues, and disenfranchised communities and all of that. I think it's easy. Prison's like a Band-Aid, right? People are behind prison walls. Lawmakers say, look, we're getting the bad guy, despite the fact that we all can be bad guys at some point. So listen, this keeps Minka and myself up at night. Our 10-year-old daughters are already social justice warriors. They understand the privilege they have. They understand that others don't necessarily come, with the same parental involvement, same educational opportunities. It's a big conundrum.
Right. So you mentioned earlier, you teased me a little bit with the qualitative and quantitative data.
Right.
So can we hear it?
Yeah. So I'll do quantitative. You can do qualitative.
Yeah.
You're good at that. So like I said, the higher education in prisons came to a standstill in this country throughout the 90s, throughout the 2000s, even through like 2015. There maybe were a handful of prison programs that were still able to operate because they had large endowments from, large private universities that had a lot of money. So those colleges could either waive tuition or they would cover the cost of tuition. You also have a lot of philanthropy, not a lot, but some philanthropy in this line of work. So like Warren Buffett has donated lots of money to prison education, specifically in New York. But like I mentioned before, the one program that has been the most longstanding is called Hudson Link, and they're out of the state of New York. And their students who participate in their post-secondary college program have a 1% recidivism rate. And we're talking about they've been tracking students for 20 plus years. Separate from that, just access even to high school education. The RAND puts out a good study, the RAND Institute. And recidivism rates decreased by 43% for people who have access to educational opportunities while incarcerated and are released. So that's some of the major data as far as quantitative, but we certainly know it doesn't hurt, right? A college class has never led to someone, getting out of prison and recidivating. So that's some of the quantitative data. I didn't, bring my notes with me. That's just what I have in here.
Hey, but listen, I got to tell you, 1%,
Yes.
1% is phenomenal. That
Yes.
is phenomenal. And I'm sure that, and as researchers, we know more research is indicated, and the replicability of research is key to the scientific method.
Right.
No doubt about it. But at the end of the day, that means that 99% are succeeding as a
Yeah.
result.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Dr. Brantley Davis, give us something.
Quality.
I mean, I started by talking about that student, but I think using these anecdotal studies, anecdotal stories probably gives us a really good picture as to what this really can do when it talks about transforming someone and kind of undoing the trauma of incarceration, right? And undoing some of whatever may have been going on before you even landed in this place. But when we're able to talk to some of our guys who have gotten out and they are, in essence, living the American dream, right? There's the confidence there to pursue employment that you may not have been comfortable pursuing before, because now you have what our society deems as credentials behind you, right? And that student I spoke about earlier was impressed that he was able to handle himself in an English class wasn't a debate, but like he was able to debate without, he said he was able to debate without anger. He was able to debate without frustration because he had the words behind him. He had the knowledge behind him, whereas that wasn't the way things were done for so long. We've had students start families since they've left, because if you look at the quantitative data, it does show that employment rates go up, right? We're talking about another provider in the home, for a home they may have left before that has been without a provider for so long, returning and able to restore some of that to that home. I believe we're equipping our guys with the ability to communicate better in their relationships, so that we have healthier families and communities, not someone who's looking at, they've been beat down and now what do I get out of this? So I just reflect on what we've been able to really see. We also, like we said, not going back to prison is often a good idea. Some of the stories that we have with, sorry, but I had to say it. Some of the stories when we talk to some of our students who are re-exploring relationships they had pre-incarceration and having those relationships now, and how do I improve those? Those are things that we know come from, we know that some of that can come from a liberal arts education. You talk about community building, you talk about you talk about all the things that are nurturing and can build us up from where we might have come. So we just believe that education is the great equalizer, and we're actually watching it before our eyes with a lot of the guys who are out and a lot of those who are still there. We were lucky enough, I know we mentioned that we have family members on this call, but a lot of the family members are want to contribute to the work that we're doing for all the students, not just for their brother, son, father, whatever it is, but they want to help everyone. And so I think that says a lot in and of itself in a space where that is not something that is often praised, right? Being a healthy part of a community and contributing to that community, where it's kind of turned on their heads and they're actually doing it.
If I can add an anecdote, we had a student not email us. We use a course messaging system. It's not open email or anything like that. But we have a student. I would say he's in his mid 40s, maybe late 40s, a white, probably lower middle class background. And he shared a message with us, and he thanked us profusely for enrolling him in a history class. And in this history class, a lot of the content was post-Civil War and Reconstruction and Jim Crow and, the civil rights era. And he admitted, he said, I always would think, like, why are people still talking about racism? Like, everyone can eat in the same places now, and he said, but this class really helped me understand the history behind the disparity and the discrimination. And unless we all tackle it head on, we're never going to move to a post-racial society. And he didn't admit to being a white supremacist or a reformed white supremacist, but it kind of was in the text. And he's like, I'm so much better just for having taken this history class and understanding that we can't just say racism was in the past. It's embedded in our systems, and I now recognize that. This is why Dr. Brantley and I are intentional about having a diverse cohort, a diverse classroom, because we want people to share and experience these exchanges.
That's right.
Excellent. So I'm wondering if some of the folks who you've invited to come on, some of the family, might be comfortable. I'm not sure.
Sandra wants to be a panelist. She
Sandra?
emails me. Yes.
All right. Excellent. So I'm promoting her to panelist.
You're promoted.
You are promoted to panelist.
Yay.
And Sandra, and now I'm making you a co-host. So therefore you can just totally share your video with us, put your microphone on, and let's hear your qualitative data, which is extremely valuable. And for those our viewers who may not know the difference in what's throwing these terms around, qualitative, quantitative. Well, quantitative is numbers, kind of like just the facts, man, just the facts, check the box kind of thing. And we hear a great quantitative number of 1%. Only 1% are reoffending who are part of this program, generally speaking. That's phenomenal quantitative result. But qualitative is, well, it's about that quality. It's about that which cannot be captured in a little, multiple choice or scale kind of a system of measurement. But so Sandra, please, if you feel comfortable, come on screen. We'll add the spotlight to you. Share your video, share your microphone, and let's.
Oh.
There you are. There you are. I'm going to add the spotlight, and please tell us your qualitative analysis on this program.
Can you see me?
Yes.
We see you great.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So my son is incarcerated there. He is Michael Smith. And I believe I've talked to Ms. Brantley and Ms. Carlo before, like with his residency and stuff. The only thing I really want to add is that this program has been phenomenal for him. Ever since day one of being incarcerated, he got not his GED, but his actual high school diploma in jail. And he has done nothing but throw himself forward into everything that the system has to offer. So I am absolutely pleased. And I'm sitting here with my mother and one of my sisters, and we'll be visiting him this weekend. But we just cannot even believe the success and the intelligence and just everything that has affected him by being a part of this program. He is extremely excited, and so are we, that this has even been offered to them. And I too did give what I could to help, some of the others when they needed stuff for the classes in the program, because, they're all in the same boat. And we don't want them to go back in there. So, this program is just remarkable. It's just out of this world of what has been done. I am totally pleased. And Michael is too. And he speaks very highly of the all the Miami-Dade staff. Can't really say that much for the prison system, but yeah. He loves his teachers. He loves, everybody there, and it's a phenomenal program. It really is.
I think that those who are of like mind, we don't need convincing, right? So the people that need convincing are those the ones on the fence. Because, by the way, those who believe in, do the crime, do the time, whatever that
Right.
is that people think in their heads, that's fine. Go in peace. We'll pray for you from a distance, for a changed mind and a changed heart. But, oh, Sandra, don't go away. No, no, no. I want to ask you another question.
Yeah,
So
I'm trying to figure out how to get back. I lost my.
yeah. So what I wanted to say is that, like, we are, the like-minded, you're preaching to the converted, right? We get this. We get the importance of programs, of prison programs specifically, and the notion of empowerment, and the
Right.
notion of knowledge is power, and how important education is. But you're talking to you're preaching to the choir. We know that already. The
Yeah.
people that are tough on crime mentality, lock them up, throw the key away, and the assumption that everyone who's in prison is guilty. Okay. Like I said, we'll pray for them. We'll do a special novena. But it's the people who sit on the fence. It's the people that aren't sure, right? And I think that if they could hear from people like you, Sandra, if you could tell us about the stigma that was associated with the story of your son, and how this program helped empower him as a person.
Right.
If you could talk to that, maybe those of our viewers who are sitting on the fence maybe can be convinced by your testimony. Go ahead, Sandra.
Right. Because I mean, I'm part of that group that before Michael was incarcerated, everybody thinks the same thing. Oh, these guys are sitting back on lounge chairs, they're watching TV, they're eating steak and lobster. And that is not the case. Yeah. Working out, they're doing all this stuff like they see on TV. And it is not like that. And it is a huge struggle, daily for them in there. And to be able to attend these classes and to focus. There is other inmates in there that actually message me, and they root him on. They are like little cheerleaders of the art that he does, and the schooling that he does, and how deep he is into always being busy. Quite frankly, if he had not been incarcerated, this would never be going on. We probably would have been burying him instead. So we're glad that, hold on just a second. Only if I can.
On appealing the case and not focused on.
Oh, right. At one point, my sister was just writing me a message here. Michael was just strictly focused on how can I appeal this case? How can I do this? How can I do that? And now he is extremely focused on himself and bettering himself. And he wouldn't have been able to do that without this program. It was a little strenuous trying to do the proof of residency, but it's just, it's just one more thing, that is required. It's not like you wouldn't have had to jump through a hoop on the outside. But this program inside, and the constant battles and the struggles of being in that environment, and still he's been on the dean's list. I mean, it's everybody's a team there. I might even, did you want to mention something? No, my sister's over there.
We want to hear from you too.
She's been very, very deep
Totally.
in Michael's case.
Come on, let's hear from the sister.
Auntie, right?
Come on, sister.
Right?
Okay, yeah. We and not only just Michael, but he's met a lot of people in there. My mother talks to people at other prisons. She communicates with them. Their schooling. This is even, not only has this been beneficial for Michael, but I saw where two guys had written some essays and were rewarded for it. And I messaged them in prison and they were flabbergasted that somebody that they don't even know, somebody else's mother, congratulated them on these programs. It wasn't Miami-Dade, obviously, but it was still the same situation. They were doing this schooling, but it's a struggle. These guys are trying to survive and fight for their lives every day. And at the same time, get this education. I mean, my son personally, he wants to know right this minute where he's going to be, what he's going to do, what his situation is going to be. Mama, where am I going to be? How close am I going to be to this place? How close am I going to be to my schooling? He wants to know everything right this minute because he knows himself. He doesn't want any time lapse between getting out and hitting the ground running. And unfortunately, he had to go to prison to find this out, but it's been extremely beneficial for him. This schooling he would have never gotten this if he was on the outside. Never.
Awesome. Thank you. So, Dr. Brantley, Professor Carlo, do you want to add to anything that's been said here?
I want to say to Miss Brown, we can't wait to see you at Michael's graduation in July. We are begging them and we are pushing to make sure it happens and that you all get to be there, but we can't wait to see you because we've done a lot with Michael and he's been a pleasure. We've enjoyed our time with him, but at the same time, we know that he can't be where he is if it weren't for you to support him as well. And so this is truly a village, right?
And he loves, all his teachers and all you guys. You guys are on my list.
Awesome.
I got Post-it notes with your names.
Thank you.
But I mean, I know we are totally psyched about the graduation.
So
Thank
just
you.
so you know, we asked FDC today to give us a date for sometime during the week of July 25th.
Yes. So mark your calendar.
We don't have the specific date, but it will be that week.
Okay, cool. Sweet.
Yes.
Fabulous.
And hopefully we see Auntie there. Who didn't want to get in the camera.
Who do we contact about doing that, or do they know?
So from what I know, I think, and this is just based on precedent, that each student will get 2 family members or loved ones, but that those individuals have to already be on their approved visitation list. So if somebody's not,
Yeah,
I
we
would
are.
start getting them
Right.
approved. Yeah.
Right now.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you
is
so much.
fabulous that they do that too. Thank you.
Thank you for being on
Thank you
this
for what you do,
program.
Ms.
you.
Brown. You're amazing.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, honey.
Thank you, guys. Awesome. So much.
That was so
So,
cool.
Is there
It was
anybody else?
great.
Is there anybody else that
Crap.
might be you might want to share?
I know Tom is a father to one of our students, but I don't know that he has access to a camera or a
camera video.
microphone. So I'm not quite sure.
And we
don't-
had some other family members, but I saw them fall off it. They might not have been able to stay the whole time. So,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
Ms. Brown, that was great. That was great.
Thank you.
And
you so
Michael
much.
is a fantastic artist also. I love his artwork.
So we have Genesis, we have Norma, Sophia, and Tom. Any of those folks? Are you?
Norma looks like a mom's name to a new student who will just be starting with us. I think I mean, my memory is not what it
Amazing.
used to be, but the name Norma Rodriguez looks familiar. So let's see.
Anybody else want to talk? Or ask a question? Wait. Oh, I see a Q&A here. I do. Just came to support my teacher, Genesis says.
Oh, hi,
Oh, and Norma says that's correct.
so Norm, and who's your son, Norma? I from memory, I can't remember. We're dealing
Oh,
with.
Norma's raising her hand, Dr. Telesco.
Okay,
maybe
Norma,
Norma wants to come in.
tell me.
Do you
Where
want
is
to come
she?
in?
Is Ricardo your son?
Yes,
Dr. Telesco,
Ricardo is my son.
I got
I
it.
just-
Remember.
Yes, and he's excited. He is very excited about little, not too sure what was going on, but he is definitely excited about joining and wanting to be part of this, going to college. He's really excited. You know, it's something that he definitely wanted to do in the past, and unfortunately he just had not had a chance with everything that happened. But Ricardo's fairly young as well, so I think this is a great opportunity for him. So I'm glad that he was chosen to participate in this program.
If you talk to Ricardo before Friday, let him know that he's on the call out for his orientation. And he is currently, I'm checking him right now as we speak.
Yes,
he's currently
the first on our list, actually.
Yeah, he's currently registered for 4 classes that will start Monday. So
Great. I'll definitely let him know, because I know he's excited. I know, and as the years have been, he has actually taught. He's been a teacher in one of the other institutes, and he's actually taught the GED as well. So I know he has it in him that he wants to learn and he wants to be part of the education. So I'm thankful for that opportunity that he got, and I'm just glad that things actually rolled out the way they have, and that he's gonna be, able to join the college as well. Thank you.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I was trying to get you to share your video, but
yeah, it just,
that's fine.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I always like to give my sidekick a little.
Oh, there we are.
Hey, there's Norma. All right. Wait, let's there you go, Norma. All right.
nice.
So I added your spotlight. Let's see. There you go. So everybody.
Yeah, I'm here. I was listening. I was listening to you guys, and it's very. I'm glad that's very informative, because I didn't know exactly how everything worked, and I'm just hoping that once Ricardo is able to finish the program, and hopefully, he's got that couple of years or so left, that he would actually have that opportunity to be able to use this degree and these credits that he's getting to be able to help him once he is out. So I'm very grateful for that. And I'm hoping that Ricardo is actually, takes advantage of everything that he can acquire while he's there. So I'm excited for him. He is too.
He should have his AA by the time he releases.
Yes.
And if once he's a Miami-Dade College student, he's always welcome. So he could roll that into a bachelor's degree when he gets out. I don't know where he's releasing to, if it's the South Florida area, but we also have most of our programs through a virtual college. So he can continue, or he could transfer to a different state university.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we're in the Southwest. We're actually in the Naples area.
Yeah.
So we're Southwest, but that shouldn't be a problem. If once he gets enrolled and once he gets his feet wet, you could say, I'm sure that he's going to want to continue. So that's important.
Yes.
But thank you. Thank you for giving him that opportunity as well, because I know he's been excited. And I remember, a couple of months ago, his mom, get this in, make sure you got it in and make sure you put it in there. And, and actually I went to visit him this past weekend, and he did ask me to reach out to you, Professor Carlo. And it's one of those things I procrastinate a little bit, but, I'm glad that I saw this email earlier and I said, oh no, this is a great opportunity. I can join and see what's going on. So thank you so much.
All I'll say to end it, I know Dr. Telesco wants to, but you've helped him out. Now he gets to do the rest of the work. Every grade, every semester is all on him. So,
yes, it is.
And I know that he's ready to perform. So it will be great to watch him go through this journey, but it's all on him now. You're done.
Awesome. Awesome. And then, listen, there's no shame in my game. So shameless plug coming that, the undergrad piece resides and sits within the wheelhouse of Miami-Dade College. But then guess what? NSU has an amazing online master's program in criminal justice. And also Fischler College of Education has a master's in education. So, and they're all online. It's online, and then ultimately a PhD in criminal justice. Because Professor Carlo, I'm thinking about two people who we know. I'm going to just say their first names: DeCaos, both D's, DeCaos and Desmond. Yeah. And they were both incarcerated in prison for years, and now turned their lives around and got a second chance through post-secondary education, and then higher ed in terms of law degrees, in terms of masters in social work for DeKaios. So, there's so much hope. As long as we're still breathing in and out, there's hope. And as long as we have that intention in our heart to do better, to be better, and we have people like Dr. Brantley, Professor Carlo, and these kinds of programs, people who are willing to support, and family like you that is willing to support the person who is trying their best to reenter successfully. I think that's it's especially so optimistic in this time when we're like, everything seems to be darkness, right? But this is the light. This is the beam and hope right there, the beacon of hope right there, and the beam of light. So thank you for being on. Thank you, Norma. Keep on keeping on. And I'm going to ask my sidekick to come on, one of our students, and I'm just going to remove your spotlight there, Norma. And he looks very studious tonight because he's wearing he's sporting those glasses, which makes him look so studious. So this is Brendan Callanan. He is a senior. He's a criminal justice major. He is a brilliant. Talk about hope for the future. Here he is right here. This is it. He's going to take all of our places when it's time for us to retire.
Good, I'm tired.
He's already been accepted into a master's program. So
congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's quite an extraordinary student. Also the president of the Sociodrama Club, and my sidekick as a work study student. But anyway, Brendan, what was your reaction tonight? And was there anything you wanted to add, or maybe a question you might have for anybody?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. It was an excellent presentation. I did have just a couple of questions about the program. First, I was just wondering if how you guys are like running it right now, whether it's through an online learning tool like Zoom, or if it's actually inside the institution in a classroom setting.
We're face to face. So we're starting 8 classes Monday. So our spring semester starts on Monday. 6 of the classes will be face to face, and 2 of the classes will be done synchronously through Zoom. But it's not because of COVID or the preference for the faculty. There are some mandates that the Department of Corrections imposes on our faculty, specifically a 40-hour training. And some faculty just did not have the time to commit to that. So that means they can't enter the prison and have face-to-face interaction with the students. And so they'll run their classes through Zoom until they can go through that training. If they can't, then they'll just run their classes once a week through Zoom. And then we use our online management system. Blackboard is what we use now to do, to upload and have students submit their assignments and stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And I'll add that's our preference. We want them to have as close to a traditional college experience as possible. So it's and it's been safer in the sense that all of those who are incarcerated were vaccinated. So our faculty feel more comfortable, being in those types of spaces. So we're moving forward.
Excellent. That's amazing. And just one more question. Aside from the residency requirement, are there any other requirements that are imposed on people to make a candidate eligible?
So Miami-Dade College is an open access college, which means if you have a high school diploma or a GED, you're automatically accepted. In our first semester, we do the remediation. So the first semester for every new student is a student life skills class, a grammar class.
A right class, and early math,
an entry-level college math for liberal arts. So that's where our faculty contextualize the content to embed remediation if they need it, if the students need it, and that gets them ready for their subsequent semesters with some more intense coursework. And because we do the cohort model, we have the same 20 students in the class moving through their semesters together. So it really builds this nice little, college experience. And this cohort that where they're all comfortable. Most of them are all housed in the same dorm. So even when they leave the education building and go back to their dorm, there is an environment that's conducive as it can be in prison, to studying and supporting one another. So that's the high school equivalency and the residency. And then they also have to be able to qualify for Pell Grants, which is a federal application. And some students don't qualify for Pell. And so unfortunately, that's the funding source. So we can't accept them into the program. If you're in student loan default, you wouldn't qualify for Pell. So if someone went to college 20 years ago for one semester and got a student loan, didn't pay it, and now they're incarcerated, the system won't qualify them for a Pell Grant. So then our college has to do what's called loan counseling and help them get out. But I'm not talking about that. I'm already.
Great.
I'm like, then you're going to just bore him because you and I, we have to talk about this all day.
Thank you. Thank you, B. Anything else on your
No,
end?
that's it. Just thank you so much. And thanks for all you do. This sounds like an amazing program.
Thank you.
Great.
Can I ask one question and put you on the spot, Dr. Telesco?
Me? Yes.
So do your undergraduate and graduate applications have a question about felony convictions at Nova?
Wow, that's a great, you are putting me on the spot. We'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know. Is that good? You like
Got
that?
the right answer.
Hey, Brendan, can we get an answer on that? He's my behind the scenes guy. Do you know if that's what the application asks for?
No, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Is there a way for us to look while I'm giving some announcements and closing it up?
Yeah, give me one.
I just asked
And if we
because.
could, yeah,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'll add to
Because there is this movement in the spaces that we occupy called Ban the Box in higher ed. And it's an attempt to get that question removed from as many colleges and university applications as possible. We understand the pushback, but it's also a barrier. It's the same for employment applications, that you automatically exclude people because of a past indiscretion. So,
and when we talk about that occupational marginalization, it's starting at this level, at the college level, and removing it. I don't think people really know that question is there, and that automatically flags that potential student's application for admission into the institution. And now they're put through lots of challenges that they wouldn't have been put through if that box wasn't there. So for instance, the entire admissions process is frozen for the most part. They now have to have a personal meeting with a dean, which you can imagine is very difficult for many students. And so it makes a lot of other layers of challenges, which would make many people say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this because they clearly don't want me here.
Yes. Yeah, I know that in like mental health counseling, and even social work, masters in social work, folks are prevented, like they might be able to enter into a master's in social work program or a master's in mental health counseling, let's say. But then when it comes time for licensure and internship, they're prevented. And I work with several people who are in recovery. And so many of their background is tainted by the disease of addiction and the consequences surrounding that, the ways and the means to get more.
You mean the medical condition of addiction?
And use the medical condition, right? Isn't it? That's an ADA issue, isn't it? And a HIPAA violation. But besides all of that, let's not get crazy. Yeah.
But what you're saying is, if I had challenges with I'm on the spectrum of someone who has issues with addiction, and I've resolved those challenges, but I happen to have had the consequences of incarceration, I'm still precluded from helping others. I'm still precluded from.
That's right. And you look at the charges, because I've helped people, get the exemptions if they need the exemptions, or to be able to go before the board or whatever it might be. And their charges are all, it's
Drug-related.
either prostitution, it's
Petty
definitely possession. But there's a certain amount that if you're in possession of, it's intent to sell.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're talking murders here or sexual
No.
assault. We're talking about, it all goes together with the package of addiction.
Mhm.
And yet it doesn't matter. There is no second chance. And it's almost like shame on these schools. I'm not going to mention their names, but shame on those schools that will accept folks and then prevent them from,
Knowingly prevent them.
eventually getting licensure.
Yep.
It's like, why did you accept them into the program? You took their tuition. And by the way, I tried to see if I could find the application, like a PDF, and I couldn't. You have to go online and apply. But we will definitely make that a mission, right, Brendan? We're going to make that a mission to look and see what this is about and speak to our dean. Now, speaking of our dean, we have three amazing deans. We have Dr. Kimberly Durham, who is the dean of the Fischler College of Education School of Criminal Justice. Then we have the executive dean, Dr. Tammy Kushner. And then we have Dr. Marcelo Castro. He's over the School of Criminal Justice. And I want to just shout out to them and thank them for all of their support, especially around the program that we do. Jessica Rodriguez also is watching us on YouTube, and she's our marketing person, our communications specialist. Thank you, Jessica, for all that you do. And I give you guys the opportunity, if you wanted to shout out to any of your deans or any of your superiors at Miami-Dade.
Oh, well, we probably want to do 2 shout outs, but first the shout outs are thank you to our dean. Dr. Claudia Bonilla was fantastic in her new role, came with us to a graduation at Columbia CI to help to help mirror and build our program around that. We just have an amazing team, but the shout out I really wanted to say is we have an Amazon wish list. And I know that I'm saying that jokingly, and we don't want to beg for money, but there are, as a matter of fact, donations that were given by people like Ms. Brown and Tom that's on here that helps us buy school supplies, because they can't go down to the local bookstore and buy pencils, pens, and blue books. It has to come from somewhere. And so we just purchased folders and composition books because their English professor says there's lots of writing coming up. So if you would like to donate to our Amazon wish list, can we put it in the chat in case there's someone there, or put it big on the screen, Brandon?
Yeah.
We certainly can. Well, we don't have actually let's see, we have a Q&A.
Yeah.
I'm going to type an answer in the Q&A. All right. So tell me what you want. Amazon.
I'm going to give you the link right now to our wish list. Maybe.
All right. Can you text it to me?
I sure will.
While you're doing that, our shout outs is to our entire administration, from our associate dean of faculty, Dr. Bonilla, our dean of faculty, Dr. Venezuela, Dean Perez is our dean of student services, Shameen Garrison is our director of financial aid, Fiona Troop is our director of admissions. These people are always available if we send a text at 10 p.m. at night, at 6 a.m. in the morning. We're driving to the prison. We need an update on this applicant. So helpful. Pedro Just is our admissions liaison, super helpful. Philip Sainserin, right? Miguel
Yep,
Carvajal.
Miss Tanisha. We could keep on listing everyone.
And
Thank
also,
you.
we would be remiss if we have to acknowledge the support we do get from the Florida Department of Corrections, because they could easily close their gates to us.
That's
I'm
right.
sure at times they want to.
That's right.
But we have an education supervisor in the prison we go to. Mr. Forrester is always helpful. The biggest shout out, I think, has to go to Miss Jamie Newberry. She's a program analyst in Tallahassee in the Bureau of Education. we couldn't get in there and do what we want to do if we didn't have the support of personnel inside. So
Right.
I know.
Cool.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you again so much to Dr. Minka Brantley and Professor Samantha Carlo, both from Miami-Dade College and the Institute of Empowerment and Second Chances Through Education. Thank you so much. Like I said, we're in the beginning of the semester, so things are really crazy between committee work and scholarship and teaching and all of the stuff that we all do, right? That we're all responsible for. And yet when we ask, they say yes. They don't say no, they say yes. They don't say we're too busy and we're going to take a pass, because not only are they proud of what they're doing, but they realize that this is a medium. This is a great medium to get the word out, right? And to change hearts and minds, and also to reinforce the good that this program is doing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I do want to make a little announcement about what's coming up here. We have a couple of really cool webinars that are coming up tomorrow night. I am hosting a human trafficking webinar. I will share this with both my professors here, my colleagues. I will share the webinar information with them, so that if you want to pass that on to anybody, we've got it's some really great speakers. In fact, tomorrow night is all about law enforcement and the strategies of fighting, combating, preventing, reducing human trafficking. So that's tomorrow night, and then the following Thursday. So I believe it's the same webinar link, and I will send that to you guys. Also wanted to open up to Miami-Dade, if you wanted to share this with your folks, that next Wednesday in person at 12 o'clock, we're doing something called Red Flags, which is a sociodrama, a thought-provoking sociodrama about intimate partner violence and child abuse. It's a sociodrama. We're doing it in collaboration with the College of Psychology, and that's going to be in the Mailman Hollywood building, which is right on campus in Davie. And it's on the second floor, in the second floor theater. That's at 12 o'clock next Wednesday. So tomorrow night, human trafficking, and the following Thursday, human trafficking webinar. It will not be live streamed on YouTube. It will just be the webinar link. And also next Wednesday, in-person Red Flags about domestic violence and sociodrama use. That's all I've got. That's a mouthful.
Amazing work, Dr. Telesco. Amazing work.
Keep on keeping on. That's all I know. All right. Thank you. Many blessings. Everybody be